Good evening, listeners of Peach City Radio, CFUZ 92.9 FM. We are interrupting regularly scheduled programming to bring you yet another Penticton All Candidates Forum. This one is presented by the Association of Interior Realtors and the Canadian Home Builders Association, South Okanagan, and taking place at the Lakeside Resort. We have gathered here a room full of home building industry leaders and workers, and once again, your candidates for mayor, and I think most of the candidates for councillor and most of the candidates for mayor will be speaking, answering questions that are related to housing. And just to be very clear, this is about the home building and housing industry in Penticton, and not necessarily about anything to do with the other issues, but they may be touched on, I'm sure. My name is Dave Del Rizzo, and bringing you the fourth of 5 live candidate debates that are happening here in Penticton, and one in Naramata, which we broadcast last night live from Columbia Hall. The next forum that we'll be broadcasting is tomorrow night. It will take place starting approximately at 7 p.m. and we put on by First Things First Okanagan, and that's taking place at the college, the Okanagan College campus on Duncan Avenue in Penticton. This broadcast is brought to you by CFUZ 92.9 FM because we feel that an educated voter is an excellent voter, and our aim and our mission is to provide as much information and education possible about topics that impact you in your community and your community at large. So we really encourage you to listen to these forums and to get out and vote. If you keep tabs on CFUZ.ca or on our Facebook presence, we will be announcing when these forums will be rebroadcast. We will rebroadcast them prior to the election in full. And you can also check during this weekend at our website, CFUZ.ca, for links to recorded versions of all of these forums. Now, you may not be joining us here in the room tonight, but we're glad to bring you this broadcast on CFUZ 92.9 FM or online streaming at CFUZ.ca. If you think this service is a valuable service, we encourage you to consider making a donation to CFUZ, which is a 100% completely volunteer-driven radio station. All of our volunteers donate their time so that you can enjoy non-mainstream music and you can enjoy topics and issues discussed in our community by our community members. So we'll just continue to listen to some groovy music. This is Moon Duo, band out of Portland, that is entertaining you at the moment, and I think we are getting set to begin shortly here at the Lakeside Resort in downtown Penticton.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Nathan Little. I'm the treasurer of the Canadian Home Builders Association of the South Okanagan, based out of Penticton. I'd like to thank all the nominated committees for candidates for joining us tonight. We'd also like to thank the Association of Interior Realtors for partnering with us on this event to find out where our candidates stand on housing and development.
Good evening. I'm Lindy Cruikshank, and I am the Association of Interior Realtors president. Firstly, we would like to recognize the Penticton Indian Band and the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Okanagan Syilx people, on whose lands we live and work.
We'd also like to thank Peach City Radio for broadcasting this evening on 92.9 FM tonight so that everyone can listen in. As a little background, the CHBA South Okanagan represents over 100 members, businesses in our region. Our members consist of custom home builders, spec home builders, developers, industry professionals, and suppliers. Annually in Penticton alone, the residential construction industry represents $100 million in wages, and over 1,500 jobs. We boost the local economy by $190 million every year. Our members are tackling housing supply issues, and we need city councillors who support our industry.
You just quoted bigger numbers than I'm going to.
Oh, okay, thanks.
The Association of Interior Realtors represents over 2,600 professional realtors from across the interior of this province. 172 of these residing right here in our beautiful city of Penticton. Realtors are proud of the work they do and their contribution to our local economy. For every home sold in BC, on average, $71,940 of economic impact is generated. This is in addition to the 49,990 jobs, indirectly and directly, that are created every year in sales in BC. Our goal as an association is to bring excellence to real estate through leadership, education, technology, and advocacy. Our members are passionate about bettering our communities they live and work in, and we look forward to collaborating with the Mayor and Council that share our vision. Housing is a very extensive and complex issue with multiple different facets that need to be addressed. Tonight, the Professional Builders Association of the South Okanagan and our Association of Interior Realtors have come together with questions focused on development and housing supply.
The Penticton civic election will be taking place on October 15th. Just an FYI, advance polls start today. Please make sure to get your members and your employees and the communities in general to get out and vote. Today we've prepared several questions for the candidates. All candidates were given these questions in advance. So let's kind of move forward with some ground rules here. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions. That might be challenging for some of you. So to keep you in line, candidates will get a 20-second warning with a yellow card held up the front and a red card warning at 1 minute. If the candidates continue to speak, Sarah will be banging the gong. And trust me, she's looked hard to find this gong. Please don't make her use it. To get us started tonight, we welcome the mayoral candidates, John Vasilaki, John Rainan, Julius Bloomfield, and Owen Hayward.
We would also like to welcome each of our councillor candidates that are here and have joined us this evening. Ryan Graham, James Miller, Isaac Gilbert, Amelia Boatby, Jack Hundile, Andrew Jacobite, Helena Konaz, Katie O'Kell, Frank Rieger, Devinder Sindhu, Larry Schwarzenberger, Campbell Watt, Shannon Stewart, Katie Robinson, Nicholas Kruger, and Lindsay Hall.
Okay. Okay, so just to reiterate, all candidates will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, at which point we'll be randomly selecting candidates to answer the questions that will appear on screen. At the end of the evening, we will give each candidate 1 minute to conclude their answers and provide any additional thoughts on the questions. Just a reminder, there's a gong.
Okay, the stage has been set. Tonight's first question is directed to our mayoral candidates. NDP leadership hopeful David Eby announced many proposed changes for housing in our province if elected. Changes include a housing set target for every municipality and reforms to the municipal approvals process outlined in the Development Approval Process Review, the DAPR. What are your general thoughts on David Eby's aggressive plan to tackle housing in the province? And I would ask Julius Bloomfield to speak first, please.
Just a reminder, there's a button on the top of the mic that you can push. Once it goes red, you're good to go.
There we go. How about that? Do we get an introduction as well? Do we do our introduction now, or do we do that later? No.
Do you want an introduction now or at closing?
Let's do it now.
Okay.
Introduction? Okay.
Sure.
And then answer the question. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name's Julius Bloomfield, and I'm running for the position of mayor. Many of you know me, and you know that I approach issues in a pragmatic, thoughtful manner. And no issues need more thoughtfulness and balance than development applications, let me tell you. Balancing the market demands and the needs of the development community against the existing residents of a city can sometimes be difficult, but it doesn't need to be so contentious. There are steps we can take to lessen the rhetoric and answer the public's concerns that surround development applications. Tonight I want to talk about the following ideas: municipal grants systems for first-time buyers, affordable housing, development review panel, open data property files, shared vehicles in multifamily developments, a review of the OCP and zoning regulations. I can't cover all of those topics in 1-minute answers. They're more nuanced than that. So I'd be more than happy to chat later with anybody who cares to join me or ask questions.
Sorry, Julius, 1 second.
Yeah. Julius, thank you for the introduction. We're going to come back to the questions that was on us. So thank you very much. We're going to carry on with the mayoral candidates. Owen, introductions. Owen, please go ahead.
Test. Everybody hear me? Yeah. Is that working? My name's Owen Hayward. I'm running for mayor. I'm a word-of-mouth candidate, so I'll tell you the little story about my name so you remember it. At the age of 6, my grandfather looked at me and said, "You'll never be rich. You'll always be Owen." So there you go. Anyways, I'm not your typical candidate, but I'm not way out west. Okay, I'm a married father of 3 young adults who are establishing their careers. I've lived in all 4 western provinces, and I like to think I'm a common sense candidate. That's my introduction. I will aggressively pursue any and all provincial and federal funding. I'm a little skeptical about David Eby, but assuming he is our next premier, I'll do my best to be friendly toward him and get Penticton off the bottom of his list, where we probably stand from past experiences with Penticton. So I'm all about supporting all sectors in the Penticton economy. I've used realtors. I know developers have their place. I would do everything I can to reduce red tape, streamline services so that you guys can get out there and build more housing, which we desperately need. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hayward, you're going to have the opportunity to say that again. Because we're actually, and it's completely our fault, my sincerest of apologies, we're going to actually go through and have each of our candidates introduce themselves, and then we will come back to the question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next candidate to speak, Jason Rainin. Again, Jason, just intros, please.
Gotcha. Hello? Oh, that one. Do I want a different mic? My name's Jason Rainin. I've lived in Penticton for my entire life. I own and operate 2 businesses in Penticton. Some of you guys will know me through Minimuffler or Beach City CrossFit. I have a beautiful wife that's here with me and 3 children. Yeah, that's me. I'm here to stand and make a difference, guys. I started Clean Streets a little while ago to try to assist in what we can curb some of the crime that we're dealing with. And I'm here for the people and to make change. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And last, incumbent Mayor John Vasilaki.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this wonderful gathering. Like I said, I'm the mayor, John Vasilaki, for the city of Penticton, and I'm running for a re-election for a second term. I've lived in Penticton for 66 years. I've been in the same business as a lot of you have been for 25 years. I was a builder. I build in excess of 50 homes, many apartment buildings with many units that at the present time, I'm probably renting out at the lowest rate of any other apartments in the city of Penticton, and the quality is just as superb as those that pay $2,200 a month, and I pay an average of approximately $1,350 compared to $2,000 to $2,000 that other apartment buildings are going for. Like I said, I've been in, I thought, is this for a minute as well?
This is just your introduction.
My goodness. Okay. Well, anyway, you know who I am and what I stand for, and I believe that I am the best man to be mayor of the city of Penticton.
John, you made Sarah use the gong right away.
All right. Okay, again, our sincere apologies for the mix-up right up front. Well, so each of you should now be relaxed and know that any error that will happen tonight is ours. So I am going to ask each of the councillors to take 1 minute to please introduce yourself. And I'd like to start with Ryan Graham, please.
Can you hear me now? Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm a Penticton guy. I've grown up here. My business is here. I'm raising my family here. I'm not a politician, and I would never stand up here and pretend to be one. Just a guy that loves my community. I'm one that's been invested in this community for a lot of years. To respect to why we're here today, I don't know the difference between a 2x4 and a 2x8. My wife gets nervous when I touch a drill. So let's just start there. But I do know that Penticton is a unique community. 2 places on planet Earth, us and Switzerland. 2 lakes in between us. We need to get unique and we need to get forward thinking when we build. Again, I want to sit with city staff after collaborating with the developers and the builders and the realtors, listen to the frustrations and the gatekeepers at City Hall. It seems quite often that it's taking far too long to get things accomplished in this city. I myself just opened our business a year ago, and we incurred costs, and it was painful to get things done. Thank you very much.
Mr. Graham, thank you. James Miller.
Good evening, I'm James Miller. I've lived in Penticton for 14 years. My wife and I have just had our 20th wedding anniversary, and we're dog owners. Unfortunately, we're not blessed with kids. We live in Fairview Village, which was built by Kenyon Construction. I've been on City Council for 15 months. Sadly, I was a replacement for Jake Kimberly, who fell ill, and then there was a by-election, and I was elected. This is my second campaign. It seems like I just did it about a year ago. And one thing, I support local. I do 100% of my shopping locally. And every dime that we spend on our campaign, we will not pay for Facebook booths because they do not pay Canadian taxation or open a local office. Everything that we take in, we are spending local. I love this community, and I'm hoping you'll let me stick around for another 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Isaac Gilbert.
Hello. Perfect. Hello, my name's Isaac Gilbert. I'm a BC Park Ranger here in the South Okanagan, and the closest thing that I have done to build a house is an outhouse in the backcountry. For myself in the city, one of the big things that I love learning about is urban design and how human ecology is in the city. And that has a direct tie to especially the people here in this room when it comes to building and zoning and how we design our urban landscape. And looking through the questions, I really appreciate that the group asked the question about the missing middle. We are seeing that as a big problem here in Canada and in the United States, that we have our zoning, only zoning single-family detached homes and having so much buildup in the downtown core. And so definitely looking forward to hopefully being elected to council and working with developers to start building back maybe what I call streetcar suburbs. Thank you.
Mr. Gilbert, thank you. Amelia Boltby.
Thank you. Is it on? Everyone can hear me? Good evening, and thank you so much to the Canadian Home Builders Association and the Association of Interior Realtors for tonight's event. My name is Amelia Boltby. I'm running for City Council. A little background about me. I'm a lawyer. I grew up here in Penticton, as did a few generations of my family. And I moved back a couple of years ago, and that led me to run in the by-election, mostly for the issues of crime and housing, and those are the same reasons why I'm running today. I'm excited to talk to you all here tonight about housing because I believe that while Penticton is growing in exciting ways, we desperately need to add to our housing inventory. We need housing that reflects a balance of prices and to collaborate with private industry to come up with creative ideas on how to build both affordable and accessible housing. I look forward to discussing this with you all tonight and to hearing from my fellow candidates. Thank you.
Ms. Boltby, thank you. Jack Hundile. Oh, okay. Thank you. Andrew Jacobite.
Thank you. Andrew Jacobite, running for City Council. Perhaps a familiar face or name. I was on council for 10 years, 2008 to 2018, 4 years being the mayor. I've lived in Penticton for 31 years. I've been involved for probably 29 of those years. Own the Groove Yard, which is a retail store a record store for 32 years, and a video production company for 12 years. Started probably with minor hockey, being involved with the community, was on to the state board of directors of BC Hockey. I was the downtown Penticton president back then, lobbying for the start of the community market and 1 hour free parking. And for the last 4 years on the board of the South Okanagan Immigrant Community Services and the organizer of Real Peach Film Festival and the Young Stars Classic. My platform is basically experience leadership to rebuild a safe and vibrant Penticton, fiscal responsibility, community safety, and community vibrancy. So hopefully I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly and have that experience to give back. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobite, thank you. Helena Conans.
Hi everyone. I'm Helena Conans. I know a lot of you out there tonight, and thank you so much for being here today. First thing I'm going to say is that we need to cut the red tape at City Hall, and all of you know what I'm talking about. I've lived in Penticton for almost 30 years, in and around Penticton, and had a small business here, and I'm a business coach and a tennis coach, as many of you know. I also was on Penticton Council from 2011 to 2018. And any of you who had to come up with, present to City Council or bring things through City Hall know that I am supportive of housing. It can be very difficult when the gallery is full of angry neighborhood, but I think the most important thing is to show leadership and to know that we're representing not just who shows up to City Council, but who we're representing the entire city as a whole and the needs of the entire city. I look forward to talking to you later tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Conans, thank you. Katie O'Kell.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Katie O'Kell, and I'm honored to be running for City Council. Like many of you here, I am also a businesswoman. I'm actually thrilled to share that this morning I was named a semifinalist for the Penticton Chamber of Commerce Young Professional category. I'm also a retired scientist, a winemaker, and someone who's really passionate about our city. I believe the biggest way to help people in Penticton right now is to create more housing, which makes the work that you all do paramount to our city's success. Let's work together to eliminate the red tape and get some building done. Over the last few years, I've been doing what a scientist does best: research. I've studied solutions put forth in cities around the globe to see what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. We need creative, proactive solutions implemented now. Drawing inspiration from cities who have already solved their housing price problems is the fastest way to move forwards. On October 15th, I would really appreciate your vote of confidence. Vote for progress and proactive solutions. Vote for Katie O'Kell. Thank you.
Zokel, thank you. Frank Rieger.
Hello? Hello?
It's on.
My name's Frank Rieger, and I'm running for a second term in City Council. I've lived in Penticton for about 35 years, having worked here for the School District 67 for about 23 years. Prior to that, starting out a career, I worked in 2 municipal governments and 2 other school districts, and the career started with getting a professional accounting degree to just help guide that career. Being on City Council's quite an interest to me, particularly around financial matters. I've had some, I think, good involvement with for this group, development cost charges, the tax rate sharing. I think helped to make, I think, a greater fairness, and that's really my goal of what I believe is fairness in sharing these costs. But I also know that beyond financial, there's a lot of issues in a school district to learn. Thank you. Frank Rieger.
Mr. Rieger, thank you. Devinder Sandhu.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Devinder Sandhu, and I've been living in Penticton for 7 years, and I've been a frontline worker for 4 years and 3 years as a community support worker. And I have I'm father of 3 kids, 2 girls and a guy. We chose Penticton 7 years ago, me and my wife, and just trying to help community. And I hope I will look forward for your vote and support. Thank you.
Mr. Sandhu, thank you. Larry Schwarzenberger.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Schwarzenberger, and I'm running for Penticton City Council. My wife Claire and I moved to the South Okanagan 32 years ago, living in Oliver, and now for the last 2.5 years in Penticton. We have 3 grown children and 7 wonderful grandchildren. I was honored to be elected to Oliver Town Council in 2013 and have been re-elected twice since then. I'm an honorary member of the Knights of Columbus, a member of the Royal Canadian Legion, and I'm a member of the Community Advisory Board of the Okanagan Community College. Correction, I said. Don't make My platform has to do with community safety and housing. Thank you very much.
Mr. Schwarzenberger, thank you. Campbell Watt.
Good evening, all, and thanks for being here tonight. My name is Campbell Watt, and I'm running for City Council. I've been on council for 2 terms now, and unlike many here, I'm not telling you what I hope, want, or think I can do. I've actually done it and can show it. I've been in Penticton now for 8 years, and for those 8 years, I've supported development in this community. I look forward to the opportunity to work with CHBA and find housing solutions for Penticton going forward. I have voted for much needed development throughout our community and our housing stock, which includes twice for the Campy property on Green Avenue, which right now would house 150 people in a well-managed building if we'd said yes off the bat. I do this because I understand the construction industry is the biggest part of Canada's economy. It is 6 times what agriculture is, twice times what tourism is. I'm not using those to demean them. I'm using those examples because in Penticton, it actually shows you how important construction is here. Thank you.
Mr. Watt, thank you. Shannon Stewart.
Hi, everybody. Shannon Stewart, running for City Council. I've lived in Penticton for about 30 years, raised 3 beautiful sons here. We've all enjoyed living, working, and playing in this beautiful community and are pretty darn invested in seeing it continue to grow, flourish, and succeed. My oldest son owns a massage therapy business that he built right downtown Main Street. My 20-year-olds are up and coming in the world and hoping to continue to call this home. I'm invested in the community in almost every way you can imagine. Have sat on a number of the nonprofit boards or worked for the nonprofits. Most recently, Jason and I have put in a major commitment in terms of operating the Clean Streets Penticton Facebook page, which has amalgamated about 4,000 of our residents and unified them and collectivized their voices. I've got a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work that I got from UBC Okanagan, and am very invested in putting those skills to work on your committees. Thanks.
Ms. Stewart, thank you. Katie Robinson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Katie Robinson, and I hope you'll remember that name on October 15th when you go to vote. I also would like to say that if you need any help with 2x4s or Makita cordless drills, call me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an experienced businesswoman with a financial and management background. I moved to Penticton in 1985 for work as a financial planner with Investors Group until I entered politics. I've had the privilege of representing Penticton as a city councillor for over 14 years with integrity, with dedication and commitment. I've also served as a director on the RDOS for 9 years and a trustee on the hospital board for 6. I have walked the talk and I have a proven record of decision making. In closing, I'd like to say to our 2 wonderful associations, thank you for hosting a forum that I didn't have to wear high heels to.
Ms. Robinson, thank you. Nicholas Kruger.
White and chai squeeze chilks. My name is Nicholas Kruger. I wanted to introduce myself in the Okanagan language because I wanted to talk about the Okanagan translation for Penticton. We call it Penticton. It means a place to live forever. It doesn't come from a place of beauty. It comes from a place of sustainability. And or in the West Coast in Alberta, they call it a place to invest forever. And when Ryan was talking about Switzerland, it made me think about how a lot of people from outside of our town are controlling the majority of the real estate market. And when I heard him say Switzerland, I just said, when it comes to housing and it comes to housing our locals, I'm not going to be Switzerland. I'm going to be Penticton. Thank you.
Mr. Kruger, thank you. And last but not least, Lindsay Hall.
The tallest counselor is always put at the back of the class. It just brings me back to high school, doesn't it? My name is Lindsay Hall. My wife and I came here more than 21 years ago, and raised our children here. Through our business, I'm sure we've met a lot of your feet over the years. Many of you will know I was an Army officer to get through engineering. I was also class secret in NORAD. I am a mechanical engineer, but what few know is I've always been hands-on with all construction. My wife has suffered it the whole course of our marriage, but she's also benefited from it. I know a lot of the problems that you're facing in the red tape and in the developer side. I know what a lot of the real estate agents are facing with the new rules that they have to oblige by. And Gil right over here is the one that sold us our first house in Penticton 21 years ago. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hall, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and read that first question again, and we're just going to start over. So tonight's first question is directed to our mayoral candidates. Again, NDP leader hopeful David Eby announced many proposed changes for housing in our province if elected. Changes include a housing set target for every municipality and reforms to the municipal approvals process outlined in the Development Approval Process Review. What are your general thoughts on David Eby's aggressive plan to tackle housing in the province? Julius Bloomfield.
Hi everybody. Well, strange as it may seem, it sounds like Mr. Eby's got your best interests at heart. And he's not the only one talking about this, actually. Kevin Falcon has been singing a similar tune. And it's a reaction to the situation that we know and face, where we have development applications and we've got the Neighbourhood Watch Association basically coming into the council meetings and saying they don't want to see any development, or they don't want to see that development in their area. Most people appreciate the need for density, but they just don't want to see it around the corner from their house. So I think we need to immediately do a review of the OCP and the zoning regulations to make sure that we maintain control of the zoning application process, and we don't fall under the province for overriding the municipal regulations. And thank you.
Mr. Bloomfield, thank you. Owen Hayward, one more time.
Okay, you already heard my thoughts on Mr. Eby and that we get any provincial or federal money we can get. I'm going to add a couple more things. I've worked blue collar, white collar, union, non-union, and been self-employed. I've been a worker, supervisor, boss, and manager. I'm a trade school and university graduate, and I have a post-grad teaching certificate. I've lived in all the western provinces, so I've been around. I've seen what other cities do, what works, what doesn't work. I'm the only mayoral candidate who actually lives in Penticton and is not connected to business developers or special interest groups. So my lens is not clouded by any particular bias. I understand developers, I understand realtors. You guys need to build, you need to develop. So I'm going to put this out there. When this event is over, if there's a few of you out there in those worlds that want to come up and tell me how we solve the Naramata bench problem and get some actual housing built, I would be glad to hear your thoughts and learn from your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. Jason Rainan.
Hey, everyone. First and foremost, I'm not a big fan of David Eby. Just going to say that one out loud. I'm sure everybody's feeling it. But that being said, if I'm going to be stepping into a position, we do need to repair the relationships and rebuild some of the trust that we have with BC Housing. They're going to be a big contributor if we're to kind of move forward from where we are today. The communication is key. We need to create some openness and transparency, especially with our public. We need to review our current OCP. Definitely look at our zoning regulations to make sure that they're up to date and that our city is aware of what we're planning to do. I feel like we've kind of kept them in the dark. and unfortunately it's unsettled our community. We need to come together, come up with a better plan, and then relay that through our OCP. Thank you.
Mr. Rainin, thank you. John Vaslaki.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a touchy one for me because you all know how I feel about Mr. Eby. Him and I are not the best of friends, and we won't have a drink together, guaranteed. But you know, his previous policies didn't work. He made a mess of the province of British Columbia, and this new policy also is going to create animosity between the provincial government and the municipalities when it comes to taking our rights away from zoning our own land. I do agree that housing is very, very important in the community, as it is in every other community in the province of British Columbia. But we have to look at our OCP because it does not correspond with our zoning bylaw. We have to change it to make sure that more footprint of a development ends up on a parcel of land to lower the cost of land, therefore lowering the housing, the cost of housing in the community. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Mr. Vaslaki, that's 2 for 2. Thank you.
Moving on to our first question for city candidates. Short for not in my backyard, NIMBYs may be supportive of more housing as long as it doesn't happen in their neighborhood. Many good developments do not get approved because of this mentality. If elected, what will you do to support responsible development moving forward in Penticton? First up is Ryan Graham.
Thank you for the question. I'm not a homeowner, but I don't believe any homeowner currently living in this community, when they purchased their home, came with a contract that said the following. In the purchasing of this home, there will be absolutely no developments near my property for the next 99 years. We need to reestablish the fact that we need to build. The NIMBYness in this community is at an all-time high. We see it firsthand with developments that have been denied. We see it firsthand with coalition groups that are trying to deny development. We need to build. We, again, 2 lakes, the Penticton Indian Band, and a mountain. We need to sit with you, the stakeholders, the builders, the realtors, sit down, collaborate, and move forward and get things built. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Next up, Isaac Gilbert.
Thank you very much for the question. I think for me, it's like, I think what we've heard here is talking about re-looking at the OCP. And that's one thing that I would really like to look into if elected on city council, but really taking it to a microscopic level to talk to a bunch of neighborhoods. I look at, for example, Argyle, Manitoba neighborhood, and discussing with those neighborhoods, what do you want to see? What do you want your character of this neighborhood to look like? And for me, what I really love to see is, like what I've alluded to before, is working towards streetcar suburbs, where you have a mix of housing of single-family detached homes, duplexes, fourplexes, and apartment buildings, but also bringing into that area services as well, such as grocery stores, shops, and clinics. And I think that's what we really need to head towards, is going into those areas and trying to consult with those residents to see what kind of character they want, and then also working with developers to bring that type of housing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next up, Amelia Boltby.
Thank you so much for the question. I think this is one of the toughest issues facing our city at this time, because it's about balancing what different people want. I'll start by saying that if I'm elected, I will ensure that all relevant stakeholders have a voice and are considered when making development decisions. However, I think good public policy is based on making decisions that benefit the city as a whole, especially in the context of housing. City councilors are responsible for reviewing proposals on the basis of how they benefit the entire city, and they need to have the confidence to sometimes make hard decisions for the greater interest of all Penticton, not just those who have the loudest voice. This town needs more housing, all forms of housing. We have to make sure there are options for those who want to move here, including new families, neighbors, teachers, doctors, and police. I will not be afraid to make tough decisions if I'm elected to City Council and make sure there are options for people to move to our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Boltby. And finally on this question, Lindsay Hall. And I just want to note that you went ahead of all of the other councillors here instead of, so not back of the bus on this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I walk to school in a tough part of Winnipeg every day through affordable housing complex. And I can see why some people would not want the affordable housing complex in their backyard, but it wasn't a degrading situation. What's degrading is putting the motels and such to house their drug habits on our main drag through the city. Is that not worse? So no, I think with proper communication with the public and examples from other communities, like where I grew up, people will understand better. And what good is this city going to be when we don't have the younger families and individuals here working, serving our meals, stocking our grocery shelves? We have to provide affordable housing, or else the community is going to die. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Our second question this evening. Currently, obtaining property file information from the City of Penticton can take multiple days, making it difficult for realtors to support the needs of their clients in a timely manner. Other communities in the interior, such as Kelowna, have implemented an efficient online system for obtaining property documents in just a few hours. If elected, would you commit to implementing such a system in our City of Penticton? The first question goes to Andrew Jacobite.
Yes.
And he's done.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to start streamlining the process and give more tools and information for people to access online at their leisure. I do a lot of my stuff at night, and also make sure it's easy to navigate through. So just even currently now, our city's website to find stuff about the OCP or certain zoning things is very difficult to find. And having been on council for 10 years, I already sort of knew where I should be looking, and I too had problems. So if you're a homeowner or you want to do some renovations and you can't even navigate through those things, or if you're a realtor and you want to provide information to your clients and you can't navigate through, or you have to go in person to do that, it's not really efficient. So all for streamlining that. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobite, thank you. Nicholas Kruger.
I thought I was going last. Sorry. You guys didn't really explain to them that I didn't get these questions until just as I arrived here. But in short, my answer would be yes. And I'm glad that other communities are using it so that we can look at the implementation of how it's been working with them, within those communities, within and around the region in Kelowna. And I guess that maybe even if there's certain things that aren't working, then we can look at modifying them. But as far as efficiency and moving forward, obviously I'm always for that. Thank you.
Mr. Kruger, thank you. And my apologies, I actually didn't want you to have to go last, so thank you. Helena Conans.
Helena Conans. Yes, of course, it sounds like an amazing tool to use, but I think we have to remember that there are other tools, and you all know them. You are the experts. What we need to use, we need to be able to use your expertise to find out about these type of systems. So that's why we need to put together a committee of builders and realtors and anyone interested in developing and housing Pentictonites, and make sure that we have your expertise at the table telling us what we need, because there's going to be a lot more like this, and we need to make sure that we aren't falling behind, which we already are actually as a community in technology and technological resources like this.
Ms. Conans, thank you. James Miller.
Hi, the short answer is I don't know. Sounds like a great idea. I've been on council for 15 months. This is the first that we've heard of it. Provided it's not cost prohibitive, sure, why not? Sounds good. I'd like to know more about it. I will like to take my 45 seconds to say in terms of the development community, I feel that the planning department that we have at City Hall is very pro-builder and very supportive of your projects, and I think they do an excellent job, and I think we have a lot of people working on your behalf. And so I'd like to also point out to the new candidates that this council, led by Mayor Vasilaki, approved 2,700 new housing units in this term alone. Much of it was done before I joined council, but to say that nothing's getting built is simply a lie. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, thank you. Katie O'Kell.
I mean, yes, this sounds like a great idea. If this is what our realtors have decided is what they need to be fast and efficient, then I am a little sad that our council hadn't known about the suggestion to begin with. I think that this really opens up an opportunity for us to get talking about better lines of communication. If some of our current councilors didn't hear of it, maybe we need to talk more. Fast, efficient processes, however we can, is really what we need to do for the city to be moving forward. I remember as a young 20-year-old when I bought my house, it was this very strange hurry up and wait moment where it was make a bunch of phone calls, make a bunch of offers, and then you wait and wait and wait. And it was agonizing. And if we can hurry up this process to make the job of realtors faster and to make that period a little bit faster for new people buying their homes, then why not? Let's do it.
Ms. O'Kell, thank you.
Third question of the evening. Penticton needs all kind of housing to tackle the housing crisis, from mid-rise townhomes, high-rise condos, to single-family detached dwellings. City councils are responsible for approving all types of housing and are therefore responsible for supporting a diversity of housing options in our city. If elected, what policies would you implement or support at the municipal level to get more housing built in this community? We'll start this off with Frank Regier.
Just to point out, we have built a lot of housing in the community this past period of time. The OCP called that we were going to have 150 homes per year built, and this is the OCP adopted in 2019. And over the 4-year period of this council term, we would have had, by those numbers, 600 homes of all forms built in the city. In reality, though, we have over 1,600 homes built, and just a lot of homes, another close to 2,000 really, that's on the in the hopper list, you might say, available for development, and has gone through various levels of approval. So there is a lot of building going on, and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regier. Next up, Katie Robinson.
Thank you. Partnering with nonprofit and other levels of government to build more affordable housing is one of this council's top 2 priorities. It has been for a while. Currently, we have 520 residential units that are under construction. Over 1,000 residential units are approved. 650 units are in development application stage, providing for a wide range of housing opportunities that will help support increasing our skilled labor force here in town. Just last week, the city started a new campaign that seeks to raise awareness about the wide variety of job opportunities available in Penticton and targeting job seekers living outside of the Okanagan. And I'm sure, of course, you're all aware of the recent Wilsey project that will see 700 mixed residential units to be built in our community over the coming years. I think the future is pretty bright for your industry.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Next up, Devinder Sidhu.
Thanks again, guys. To make approval process faster and easier by introducing a efficient single window approval online system. Also, I would like to design a specific program for builders in consultation of local builders, realtors, city council, and staff to get the best of new developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. Response, please, Larry Schwarzenberger.
Thank you for the question. The policies that needed to be changed, I believe, are zoning changes that would allow more density and perhaps more lot coverage to keep the costs of land down and to facilitate more multifamily and townhouse developments. This should go in conjunction with, as some of my other colleagues have mentioned, an OCP, a new OCP in the coming term. Making sure that the zoning and the OCP are looked at together and stay in a single form allows builders to know what can be built on each property and will take some of the red tape out of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarzenberger. And to the tallest candidate in the forum, Mr. Lindsay Hall.
I'm getting picked on now, and I just came for the free meal. Kidding. No, guys, City Council is your board of directors. We're the advocates between you and the public, right? We can have all the opinion we want on a subject. Will we stand in your way? No, it's not our job to do so. What we need to do is communicate your intentions to the public and gain public approval. Is that not right? That's our job. We're not demigods. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Okay, our fourth question of this evening will be directed to our mayoral candidates. Despite their depth of knowledge in housing, realtors and builders are often left out of the policy process. If elected, how would you better engage the construction industry and realtors on housing and real estate issues in the Penticton area? Jason Rainan.
All right. You know what? I actually sit down with realtors quite often. I have quite a few friends that are realtors. And listening to this question and talking about it with them, they felt like they did participate in this. But that being said, regular emails could be sent from the city to local realtors that include current policies and housing statistics. We could consider when developing our OCP. Looking at changing bylaws or consider any rezoning efforts, we need to streamline these processes for you guys. We're getting hung up a little bit. And actually, on all sides of this, I'd really like to just state we talk about this housing crisis. The housing crisis is created because we let a lot of people who don't live here buy property and put it up on Airbnb. So there's a lot of property here right now that could be used for other uses. It's not, because we've kind of created a problem. That's it.
Mr. Rainin, thank you. John Vaslaki.
Thank you very much. I believe that we should be having many meetings quarterly with the CAO of the City of Penticton, the mayor, and the deputy mayor to take place quarterly, like I said, that their concerns can be known. Realtors are a very important group that have the pulse of the community in their hands. And I believe that before we look at our OCP again, that we should have consultation with not only realtors, but also the building industry of our community, so that they can give us ideas of how we can progress forward a lot better than to do it at the present time. I believe that communication is probably the best way we can get along and get things done for those that need housing in our community. Thank you.
Mr. Vaslaki, thank you. Julius Bloomfield.
Hi, and yeah, thanks for the question, because this is true that most realtors do feel left out of the process and the policy processes within the city. I think really the best way to tackle this is to have city planners attend the sales meetings for the real estate companies on a quarterly basis, maybe, but on a regular basis, so that the planners can hear from the realtors themselves as to what's going on out at the street level. The realtors are really the troops on the ground. We're the guys that get in the trenches, and we can report back as to what's happening with public opinion about policies that are in place at the moment, ideas to how to improve them. And it's a two-way street of communication, because the planning department can then tell the realtors why there's these different policies in place and what higher level of government legislation they have to follow.
Mr. Bloomfield, thank you. Owen Hayward.
Consultation, common sense, collaboration, cooperation, and compromise. I'll tilt the playing field. Local, local, local. Incentives and initiatives for local builders. And I'm going to spend some taxpayers' dollars and build some housing, whether it's public-private partnerships or we just build it ourselves on our own land. And for that, we're going to need builders. And we need more housing. We're going to do it in a prudent fiscal way. We're going to do it in a shared way. We're not going to create ghettos. And we're going to get motels back to the motel business, use our zoning pragmatically to get the guests and the tourists in one zone, and residential areas remain residential. Thank you.
Mr. Haywood, thank you.
Moving forward to our fifth question of the evening. City councils have a direct impact on housing affordability with development approval timelines and development cost charges. Faster approvals and reasonable DCCs mean less long-term costs passed on to home buyers. Increases need to be done incrementally so they do not put unexpected strains on budgets. If elected, how will you engage the builders on important policies that affect their industry? First up, Campbell Watt.
Thank you. Easy answer. I'll push for shorter timelines on permits for planning and zoning, on Simple example would be carriage house with no garage below, auto approved. For DCCs, I've already fought for DCCs to go from what was a proposed 40% increase to 25% increase. I would suspect more importantly, I fought for those increases to come in incrementally instead of all at once. What we need is someone who can look at DCCs on a much more regular basis, perhaps even annually, and I'm not sure if a housing authority or housing roundtable, both of which I think are great ideas and have suggested in the past, are the solution. But those are definitely something I support and hope we can come forward with to help this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watt. Next up, Shannon Stewart.
My answers for most of these questions were pretty consistent, pretty similar. I think that it's really truly about transparency, about consultation, about reasonable timelines for you guys to be able to go through the approval process efficiently and adequately in order to meet everybody's needs. Any cost should not come as a significant surprise while during that process. The delays, of course, are going to increase the likelihood of that, and that's unfair, I think, to everybody. You can't predict what your outcome costs are going to be if the process is delayed to the point where you have to accommodate all the changes in between. I think all costs are kind of subject to change. Even the cost of the materials can fluctuate. So there's a lot of discrepancies involved in that process. We need to be a little bit more methodical and plan well, but speed up the process to maintain the efficiency for everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Next up, Ryan Graham.
Absolutely. I am 100% in agreement that we need to do whatever we need to do in collaboration to embrace our developers. In my personal opinion, we're scaring them away. We need to be a community that has balance. We need to be a community that understands the nibbiness is at an all-time high and that we're turning good developments away. We need housing. We need city staff, council, and mayor to come to the realization that we're not going to build these homes. So we need to sit with the professionals that do it for a living. Again, it's you that we're going to look to rewrite the wrongs currently happening.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Next up, Amelia Boltby.
Thank you so much. It seems like timelines are being elongated as staff are acquiring more information over time. Although it's important, it slows the process down and delays new housing coming to the market, which ultimately increases the cost for the builder and the buyer as well. I like the idea of tracking building permit and development timelines so that council and the community can be informed of how long it will take to get permits. This also ensures that projects come online sooner, and propose that we start tracking this at City Hall to make sure we generate guaranteed permit timelines. Certainly in the building and development community, it's very important knowing when you will get your permit. And we would like to keep DCCs at a competitive level so that Penticton remains a place where investors want to come and build. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Boltby. CHBA has some great new reporting on this too, by the way. Next up, Frank Gregier.
The 2007 BCC bylaw was based on a 10-year growth plan. By 2016, the population increase that was projected at 8,800 came in at 7,100 short of that. And projected 4,400 housing units to be developed in that 10-year period came in at 1,000. By 2016, there was a massive disconnect between the bylaw projections and what actually happened. In 2007, the staff committed to a full review of BCC bylaws every 5 years. I think the city was negligent that in 2016, the grossly outdated BCC bylaw was left in place during the 6-year construction boom of 2022. It's predictable that if the new bylaw was approved in 2017, we would have a reasonable incremental increase easily absorbed by housing prices that doubled in the hot market of 2017 to 22. By not adopting the BCC,
Thank you, Mr. Rieger.
Our sixth question of this evening is directed to our councillors. Housing supply is an issue in many interior communities, including Penticton. The Development Approvals Process Review and the Canada-BC Expert Panel on the Future of Housing Supply and Affordability have made a number of recommendations to improve housing supply. If elected, would you commit to increasing the supply of missing middle housing through implementing less restrictive zoning and reducing approval timelines? I will ask Katie Robinson to speak to that first.
Thank you so much for that question. I desperately wanted to answer the last one, so I'll get it in here. Penticton, in case you don't know, currently has the best approval times in the province. However, I'm committed to doing everything possible to increase the missing middle housing. I would need to know more detail on exactly what less restrictive zoning refers to, but I have always supported responsible development in Penticton and will continue to do so should I have your vote on October 15th. Please vote for positive experience. And if you'd like to see the proof of being number one, I have it in my hand. You can talk to me after the session's over. Thank you.
Ms. Robinson, thank you. Andrew Jacobite.
I guess I could say yes again. I think increased density around our village nodes, which is basically the three malls downtown and the Northern Gateway, makes sense because it's near green spaces, it's walkable for transit into shops and services. And Minister Eby talked about the new platform. Some of the things Penticton already does, and we're very progressive with carriage houses and trying to have allowing multiple units on one lot, RM3 or RD3, which I think carriage houses and secondary suites is probably the easiest and quickest way of increasing our housing stock, and also a benefit of revitalizing and modernizing neighborhoods. But we do need to work on increasing and utilizing the footprint, limited footprint, and somehow still have and add some character to our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobite, thank you. Helena Conans.
Hi, Helena Conans. Yes, we need to do that, improve the timelines, but I don't think this is a time for anyone on the current council or any of us to be patting ourselves on the back. We are in a crisis. So when we say we need to increase our DCCs because we haven't been increasing them for the last 20 years or 10 years, well, how about let's say that our housing is so expensive, is this a good time to increase our DCCs by 50% in the last 2 years? That cost, you all know, we all know, is handed down to the buyer, and people cannot afford homes in this community. So instead of thinking we're going to catch up with our DCCs, let's talk about keeping housing more affordable by keeping costs down and keeping our DCCs down.
Ms. Conans, thank you. James Miller.
It is Diet Coke in there. Restrictive zoning and reducing approval timelines, no, I'm sorry. Katie Robinson is bang on. We're ranked number one with Kamloops being number two. But who remembers the hockey dorm fiasco of 2010 where the council of the day and the mayor of the day wanted building to go ahead. Staff had to work through the Thanksgiving weekend. It was a ridiculous proposal, which, by the way, Mayor Vasilaki was the only person at the time who smelled a rat and voted against it. The proprietor ended up in the Oliver Correctional Center for 2 years, tons of liens against the city, hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees because they wanted to get it done. Although well-intentioned, sure. The Skaha Water Park, again, let's get it done, let's get it done. Well, $200,000 to buy the proprietor out. I make, forgive me, I'm cautious. That's the way I am. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, thank you. And Katie O'Cal.
So I'm a big fan of reading about things I don't know about. So I actually read this entire report. Surprisingly, it didn't put me to sleep. I found it actually very interesting. Developers shouldn't be getting contradictory advice from different departments, a lack of consistency of requirements between adjacent governments, or ever-increasing level of complexity requirements. These are all things that were pointed out in the report, and these are not things that you as builders and developers should be going through. The suggestions in this report make sense. We should absolutely be triaging development applications at the submission stage to identify incomplete, easy, and complex applications and treating them accordingly. We should have a digital permit tracking system. If I can order a pizza from Domino's and see it as it arrives to my house, why can't you see what's happening to your building permits? This report made it clear that there's no transparency or efficiency. There's a concrete roadmap for how to fix this, and the city should be following it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Cal.
On to the final candidate question for the evening. Housing supply. Oh, thanks. If yeah, this is question 7, Mr. Mayor. Thanks. If elected, would you support the formation of a housing roundtable that brings together all levels of government, industry groups, builders, realtors, and nonprofit organizations to address housing? We will start with Isaac Gilbert.
Hello, thank you so much. I do agree that I think we need to have a type of formation of a roundtable and a framework for all levels of government to come together to address our housing needs, and especially within the nonprofit sector and the cooperative housing sector. However, I don't agree that, for me, my issue with it is I don't agree that realtors and maybe the housing developers should be at that table, because at the end of the day, we're here to govern as elected officials, and you have a fiduciary response with your clients to build housing and to get them housing. And it's not about getting in your way, it's about ensuring that that conflict of interest, that we don't, our perceived conflict of interest with realtors, that we're trying to make underhanded deals. So I think really what I would love to see is the Association of the Interior Realtors and the CHBC continue to lobby politicians at the council table to get your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next up, Devinder Sandhu.
Yes, I'm 100% in favor of it, as in current times, the best of the knowledge from every field is every critical in tackling housing and crisis efficiently and faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. Next up, Larry Schwarzenberger.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm in support of a housing roundtable. I think it helps to get views from all people, not that those views might not be acted upon, but I think getting views from realtors, builders, industry groups, and nonprofits, especially nonprofits, can only help the decision-making process. I think, as many of the people have said, an OCP review and input from this group into what things matter in OCP in different areas would only streamline the process. So I would be in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarzenberger. Next up, Shannon Stewart.
This one's a little bit of a no-brainer for me. It's kind of my area of strength and truly where my passion lies. There's a reason that social is in the title of social work. I'm all about putting people together. So I don't think that there's any process that can replace a decision-making model that starts with gathering all the key stakeholders and the people invested in the outcomes of the decision. You need to start reviewing all the relevant information, perspectives, fully and collaborating to develop create a plan that has the checks and balances inherent in them to allow for evaluation for its success or its lack thereof. There needs to be constant review in order to see if it's working or not. I'll always offer to hold space for those kind of discussions and facilitate the engagement process because it's really, truly imperative to achieving any positive outcomes. I don't think that we can do anything solely or independently. We're always better together.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Finally, Campbell Watt.
Thank you. I 100% agree with the roundtable idea. In fact, I've already answered that in part of my answer earlier, and I've said it in previous forums. I think it's a tremendous idea, and we should be doing it already. The fact that it exists already, and I think that Nelson, Richmond, Whistler are examples of this, are that we are just about shy of falling behind the times. So we still have an ability to put together a group, and we should do this. And the fact that we can tap into the kind of mindset that progresses with this and make decisions prior to it coming to council is a tremendous asset. I 100% think this is something we should do. And for our community, it speaks to partnership. And I can tell you, if you're going to make affordable housing, you cannot do it without partnerships. So it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. One more. Finally, Nicholas Kruger. Thank you.
Obviously, I've always been a huge supporter of bringing people together. And so for me, this is pretty simple and straightforward. It's the reason I'm here tonight. There was a miscommunication here, and they got my email address wrong, and so I didn't get the invite. But I came here not to take part. I came here to partake. I came here to cheer these people on, the fellow candidates, and I came here to show my support. And I thought I would be sitting amongst the crowd here and show you guys how to clap. So when it comes to bringing roundtables together, obviously I've always been a big fan of that. There's a reason that the best hockey player in the world doesn't win every Stanley Cup. It's because it's the best teams that always win. We're going to make some good teams. We're going to make some good teams here. I guess, or do we have any more questions? No, that's it? Okay. Anyways, congratulations on today, the first day of voting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. We apologize again for the error, and we really appreciate your attendance here tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all councillors and candidates for your answers. I'd now like to invite all candidates to provide 1-minute closing comments. If we can start with Ryan Graham.
That's a curveball. We didn't know we were having closing comments, but I appreciate you kept us on our toes. Again, we're here to listen to you. We're here to build. We're here to create a community of balance. It can't all be million-dollar homes, but we have to find balance. We have to make sure our developers and our builders are heard, and we need to make sure that we can do everything in our power to work within the parameters of the OCP and zoning, and if we have to amend, let's amend. We can't continue the same stagnating that we have right now in our community. We need to be forward thinkers, and we need to be leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Next up, Mr. Miller.
Hi, thanks for everyone for coming tonight. Thanks for organizing that. My name is James Miller. I do support sensible, sustainable development in our community. I don't believe in selling ourselves short. We are a 5-star community, and I'd like to hear from all the stakeholders that are involved. I think the most pro-development mayor we ever had in our city was Mike Pierce. He ran for mayor of White Rock in 2018, almost won, and he ran on an anti-development campaign, which really puzzled me. But again, he felt that White Rock was being overdeveloped. And so Penticton doesn't want to lose the charm it has. I congratulate Mayor Basilaki and the council on 2,700 units that were approved during their term. I was there for just a little bit of it. That's not bad for a city of 34,000. And as Katie Robinson says, we're number 1 on approval timelines. That's pretty damn good.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next up, Isaac Gilbert.
I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And yeah, I think for me, where I really see it is that if we can start addressing some of these housing issues and really look at our communities as more vibrancy and working towards seeing more diverse housing and to addressing the missing middle, you know, it's going to help alleviate a lot of our other issues that we have in the city when it comes to crime. My biggest thing is I really want to see those diverse neighborhoods have the services that people can walk to, bike to, or even drive to in the community by putting eyes on the street and making our city vibrant again. It would be really nice to start seeing, you know, our downtown uplifted as well with that vibrancy. And I know I didn't get to address it here because the question didn't come up, but, you know, two is getting that affordable housing in and working with the college to expand their program to start getting tradespeople in here so that people can, so the home builders have tradespeople to pull from to be able to get jobs here in the city. So thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next to respond, closing comments, Ms. Amelia Boltby.
And thank you to everyone who keeps passing me the mic all night. I think that we've heard a lot of common themes tonight, and the big ones that stand out in my mind are that we need collaboration with private industry. I think there's a wealth of information here from our builders, our realtors, our construction industry, and I do think that the city should be hearing more from them. I would look forward to collaborating with all of you to do better in terms of housing, timelines, permits. With all due respect to our existing city councilors, they may have reached the goals that they set for themselves, but I think as a community we're still falling short. That means we need to raise the bar even higher, and if I'm elected, that will be one of my main goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boltby. Next, Andrew Jacobite.
Thank you. Well, the 10 years I was on council, I would like to think I have had a proven track record, been very pro-development. If you think 10 plus years ago, the NIMBYism of Churchill Avenue with the late Bruce Shoney trying to put duplexes with secondary suites, and that has transitioned and transformed that neighborhood, and other streets are doing the same thing. I think back in 2008, as we are now, entering just a bit of a recession or some sort of downturn, and we created economic investment zones. I'm not saying we necessarily have to do that, but some sort of reductions or incentives to deal with purpose-built housing, and that also would have some involvement with BC Housing as a partnership for the financing of that, but also for changes in the Tenancy Act if you want to go target long-term rentals. Again, Andrew Jacobite, thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobite. Next up, Helena Conans.
Great, thank you. Thanks for tonight. I think that what hasn't been talked about enough is the cost of doing business here in Penticton right now. So DCC is up 50% in the last 2 years. The tax rate went up last year, the highest it has in almost 20 years. And the business tax multiplier is being pushed up every year by this current council. So the cost of doing business, we need to connect the dots. Everyone here that will be on council needs to understand that those costs get passed on to the consumer, and there we add to our housing unaffordability. So if we can work as a government, as a local government, on bringing down the costs of doing business here in Penticton and building that house, we can help with housing affordability. I'm Helena Conans. Please vote for me on October 15th.
Thank you, Ms. Conans. Next to respond, Katie O'Kell.
I want to thank you all, not just for coming here, but for the continued service you do to our community. We all wax poetic about how great affordable housing is, and none of it would happen without any of you guys in this room. I think I've demonstrated that if I am not fully aware on a topic, I'm willing to read a lovely 50-page report on it to make sure that I'm well educated on the topic so that I can stand here and represent you and your concerns. Unfortunately, it did not teach me the art of how to mud drywall, so I have to thank one of you in this room for doing that for me at my house. But it did show me all of the concerns and all of the roadblocks and hurdles that you guys have building here in Penticton. I really want to make affordable housing happen, and I can't do it without you. And I'm really looking forward to mending some bridges and creating some teamwork so that we all can do this together. Thank you so much for your consideration, and I would be honored to represent you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Kell. Next up, Frank Regier.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. Most interesting evening. I've always had a view with the finances of a municipality that you should be able to try and come to some sense of fairness between how the costs are allocated. There's really only two groups of organizations to pay. It's the business community or it's the residential community. And I like to think there's some way to get to a sense of fairness in those allocations and costs. When we're talking about, for instance, deferring or not collecting on the DCCs, we're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars in there to upgrade our infrastructure, our water system, our sewer system. Those are many millions of dollars, and I like to have the numbers in front of me, that they're defined by staff to know what we're talking about when we're doing it, not to make decisions without information. Thank you. Frank Rieger.
Thank you, Mr. Rieger. Next up, Devinder Sandhu.
Thank you so much for being here. The only comment I can do not forget to vote me on 15th. So I will bring up your concerns and your questions, and I would love to learn about more housing. And yeah, I'm here for you guys. Thank you so much. And my name is Devinder Sandhu.
Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. Next up, Larry Schwarzenberger.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here tonight. Increasing Penticton's housing affordability and supply needs to be addressed through zoning and OCP regulations, and perhaps tightening the regulations around short-term vacation rentals. Keeping property tax increases to a minimum can only happen by expanding the tax base, and that happens through new construction, new business, and new housing projects. Again, my name is Larry Schwarzenberger, and I am the longest name on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarzenberger. Next up, Campbell Watt.
Thank you. Very simply, let me start with saying thank you to the CHBA and the Realtors Association for putting this together and giving us an opportunity. Thanks to Lakeside for hosting. I've been on council for 8 years and supported development. I will not pat myself on the back because we are the so-called best in the industry. If we are in a housing crisis, it means we're not keeping up. We need to keep up. It takes longer to get a permit than it does to build a house. That is unacceptable. I would love to see that changed, and I will help make that change. I appreciate all of you being here. I just want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Watt. Shannon Stewart, please.
Again, thanks everybody for coming. It's been a long night. You've had lots of information to digest. I think that based on my unique education and experience that I bring an entirely unique skill set to the table. I think that we were given one mouth and two ears for a really good reason. I know how to use both of them effectively. I don't need to be an expert of all things. I just need to know who to best consult with at the time when I'm looking for answers and trying to make the best decision possible. I truly do not know how to build a car, even repair a car, but I get in my car every day. If something goes wrong, I know who to go to. In terms of building, I know who to consult with. In terms of realty, I know who to consult with. I have people close to me in both of the professions, and I consult them often in terms of preparing for this. I would continue to consult with you moving forward because you guys are the expert of your business. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Next up, Katie Robinson.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for bringing your insightful questions. You know, I've always believed in the acronym TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. I look forward to working with all of you, and I hope that on October 15th, you'll vote for positive experience. I'm Katie Robinson. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Lindsay Hall.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm Lindsay Hall. You know, I'm a proven public advocate. I'm not a Johnny-come-lately. Perhaps if I hadn't lobbied for your referendum back in 2011, we would have the prison in town and you wouldn't give a damn about developing this town, right? No, we got the referendum and we decided what we wanted for our community. Now, a short while ago, I undertook a project and I experienced the red tape that I know you're all dealing with, and which has to be dealt with in our community to streamline the process for progress. I wanted to answer that last question and ask, what the hell have you guys been doing? If you're not collaborating with government, real estate with developers, et cetera, how have you been just trying to herd cats? You know, as an engineer, I wouldn't have designed any buses or jet tooling if I just sort of winged it. Of course we have to collaborate, group with advocates. That's how we progress as a community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Kruger, your mic, sir.
This room is kind of funny to me. Before I was ever doing this, I used to be a professional pool player for 25 years. 14 years they had the BC championships in this very room. 9 of those years I won it. So when we talk about housing, this is my house. People came from everywhere to try and beat and take something from this town. I wouldn't let them. I was one of the best, and I'm hoping that you guys will give me the opportunity to be the best at this too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger.
I'd like to invite each of our mayoral candidates as well to speak for 1 minute. Mr. John Vasilaki.
Thank you very much. When you vote on the 15th, my name under the mayor's is at the very end, so forget all the others and go to the end and vote. Thank you. But I believe that well-designed developments with the respect for the neighborhood would be my priority. Growth is positive, but also needs to be well-managed. Through zoning, we can reduce the required footprint for housing developments and increase the number of doors built for each parcel. With zoning changes, we can influence the creation of safe and comfortable neighborhoods for more diversity of housing options. We have housing gaps in accommodations for the working poor, young families, seniors, and first-time buyers. This is the type of housing we should be striving for. And I thank you all for being here this evening. I'd like to thank our moderators, and the realtors and the builders of this community, because if it wasn't for you, our community wouldn't be what it is today. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see the red card.
Mr. Vasilaki, thank you very much. Jason Rainan.
Hey everyone, I'd like to thank the CHBA. Thank you guys, and the Lakeside for putting on this event. Really, knowledge is power, and in many minds will help develop more knowledge. We need to find collaborative solutions. I've been successful in business by listening to others, having an open mind, listening to people in similar industries as a model and incorporate it daily. We do not need to recreate the wheel. I see this constantly in Penticton, and I hope that we can start to look to others who have done great things and move forward. Groups of individuals are the fastest way for us to find the flaws and maximize our opportunities. Let's streamline those processes and make it happen. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Rainan, thank you. Julius Bloomfield.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. This has really been like a round table, really. This is, you've heard us do all the talking, but we've heard your talking through the questions that we've had put in front of us. So it really feels like it's been like a round table. And there's some things that we need to hear from you. I think that we need to hear from the developers. How do you feel about a development advisory committee versus lobbying the municipal government as a group? I believe that there is strength in lobbying as a group. Just look at how the breweries do it. They all get behind each other, and they get a lot of progress that way. When it comes to designing developments, please think about the design and the quality of life for the people living in those developments. It really makes it a lot easier to get to a yes on those applications. And file access for realtors, well, we're working on it.
Mr. Bloomfield, thank you. And finally, Mr. Owen Hayward, I invite you to share your closing thoughts with us.
Thank you. I intend to lead a progressive council and focus on the basics of municipal government that is efficient, effective, and gets out of your way and lets you spend your time building and developing. I'm a pragmatist, both Naramata Bench and Wiltsey. Access issues. I talked to the fire department. I've talked to the CAO. At a minimum, we need to put a road for the Naramata Bench so emergency services can get in there, and I'm tired of city staff and city reps having nonsensical responses to Wiltsey. How's everybody going to get in and out of there? And the city says, oh, well, we're hoping more people walk and bike. 700 residences up on the Wiltsey Bench, and you're going to walk and bike to get your groceries and go to work? Anyways, I'm about common sense. I'm about fiscal prudence. I'm about supporting our businesses and our citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Hayward, thank you. Thank you again to all of our candidates for coming out and answering our questions. And thank you to Peach City Radio for broadcasting this evening. To each of our mayoral and council candidates, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your opinions this evening. On behalf of the Canadian Home Builders Association of the South Okanagan and the Association of Interior Realtors, we truly appreciate everyone taking the time to be here this evening. And to each of our guests that have joined us this evening, thank you very much for taking the time to come out and listen to the important messages that have been shared with us this evening. Please make sure that you take the time to vote. Your vote does matter, and it's appreciated. Thank you.
All right.
That brings to an end our 4th of 5 debates. Forums. I'm joined once again by my partner in crime, technical director at CFUZ, Nils Finson.
Good evening.
What did you think of that one?
It was interesting. Obviously, the topics were different than any of the other forums we've been to. It's my apologies. Anyways, it was very interesting getting to listen to the candidates and the things they were speaking about. In this forum, it was It was presented by the Canadian Home Builders Association of the South Okanagan, along with the Association of Interior Realtors. So a lot of the topics and questions were around stuff relevant to them, and these are points of view and answers that I hadn't heard in any of the other forums.
That's right.
There were some key points that with some of the candidates where there was a common thread, but a lot of the topics were totally new to me.
Yeah, and I think it's what I find most interesting about the fact that this is the 3rd forum for Penticton Council and Mayor that we've done, and we'll do another one tomorrow. It's kind of interesting in the absence of a big forum headed up by one organization. There's a lot of little forums, and they're really focused on their own, very concentrated and focused special interest. But I think anyone who is going to take the time to listen to all of them, and we facilitate that here for you on CFUZ.ca, I think you'll gain an understanding of where each candidate comes from and what their thoughts are on these very different topics. Each topic very important to how the city runs and how the city will run for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I was sort of thinking about this myself, is because there's all these individual forums, right? It's not necessarily feasible for all of the public to join them, right?
Oh, exactly.
I recognize very few people in the audience from the other sessions that we've participated in.
Yeah, and even to that point, not even all of the candidates were able to make it to all the forums.
Yes.
But I'll tell you one group of people who did make it to the forums at CFUZ. We're here because we believe it's important for the community to be educated and to understand all the issues and to know all the candidates. I believe we're working on a series of long-form interviews with all the mayoral candidates, which we will broadcast in the coming days. And everything that we've recorded and broadcast regarding the election forums will eventually be available online through links at our website, cfuz.ca, and through the various partner organizations that have hosted these forums.
Yep.
So thank you once again did you have any closing thoughts? No?
I did actually. I'm actually excited that we got to participate in it at this level. Again, I'm relatively new to the radio station. I've been there for a few years, but just what we're doing, this is new to me. And in all honesty, hope we get to do this again. Like, this is an interesting venue, an interesting perspective, but the fact that we become this channel to a very broad audience of people, all of you listening right now, even those of you listening to the archive shows or the recorded shows, we're providing this to you and making it super accessible. I hope we get to do this again.
Yeah, I hope we will do it again. As a program director at CFUZ, I can guarantee that we will do this again, especially if we are invited, or maybe we will spearhead our own forum in the future for other elections. I can definitely see us doing that. But what I do want to say also, and I remind everyone who's listening, that CFUZ is a fully volunteer-run organization, and we rely on donations from our listeners and participants to keep our business going, because we do operate as a business. We have revenue streams, we have rent, we have utilities, we have all these what are they called? Payments, I guess we have to make.
Yep.
Costs in bringing you independent is the key word here, independent radio. We're not owned by a corporation. We're owned by a nonprofit society. All decisions are made by consensus with our board. And I think it's very important to remind everyone all the time that we rely on your donations. So if you're interested in donating, head over to cfuz.ca, where you can hit the donation button and let us know what you think by making a small donation or a large donation to Peach City Radio, so that we can keep bringing you this service and keep being a presence in the community for you.
Yes, I totally agree. And for those of you who don't feel left out, a medium-sized donation is also acceptable.
That's totally fine. Absolutely. We'll take anything. Thanks once again for your patience while we preempt regular programming for these forums. And catch us again tomorrow for the First Things First Okanagan Forum. That's happening live at the Okanagan campus of Okanagan College and the Penticton campus of Okanagan College on Duncan Avenue, and I believe it will be starting at 7 o'clock, so tune in here, CFUZ 92.9 FM in Penticton, and you can hear it live or you can stream it online at cfuz.ca. We do appreciate your listening, and now we return you to regularly scheduled programming.
Have a great night, everyone.
Bye-bye.